Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we are going to talk about Path of Champions and some initial thoughts about the game mode. I've seen some, Reddit comments about some things that people aren't too thrilled about, and I thought we'd dive into them so that you would have a place as well to maybe, talk about what you think about the mode. I think in general, here's how I would personally, from what I've experienced so far, here's what I would say. I think that this is definitely 100% better than Saltwater Scourge by a lot. I'm glad that they fixed some problems that I had with Saltwater Scourge. I think, obviously, just the idea of having the big map is really cool. Having the different things to fight against is quite cool as well. And, if this is only going to expand, then, this is basically another game. So it's the hugeness of it, I really, think is pretty cool. And also, I think, we can probably all agree that the sort of initial quests with the comics and the story is also quite fun and quite cool and unique as well. And was really well done, I think, on the whole. So, thumbs up for sort of probably the main new things that they were going for. Were those two things, and I think they both are pretty good. I also like some smaller things, smaller details that, perhaps other people won't appreciate as much, but if I just go into, play against Gangplank, for instance, here, I like that the branching paths are, feel more of a choice. In Saltwater Scourge, you could go to every path that you went to, whereas in these, once you pick a path, you're sometimes, you're locked out of going to other paths, which I kind of like, because it actually makes you make a decision. So that's another good thing, I think, that they've changed. However, there have been some complaints, and this is the main sort of crux of the matter. One of the main complaints, of course, is, well, I should go back in, really, shouldn't I? One of the main complaints, of course, being the lack of abilities. So if I go here and I go on power, I get to choose one of these powers, but I don't get to reroll. Not yet, at the very least. So, I don't get to reroll, and some people don't like this. They don't like that, I'm being stuck with these decisions, with these three abilities, and that's it. Now, as people have sort of said, this can be a bit of a problem because a lot of people play Lab of Legends to, sort of come up with crazy combos and crazy ideas and unique kind of overpowered stuff that, you can't do in PvP, which is fair enough. And, for people like me who are more about the challenge, I don't like things being that easy. I like stuff to be a challenge most of the time. The argument is that you could put infinite rerolls on this first one, and people like me who like the challenge just won't use it. We'll just not use it and make it a challenge for ourselves and only use what we're first given, right? And that's fair enough, because I don't mind doing that, If I want a challenge, yes, I will just pick from the first three abilities I get. But I also think that people shouldn't be limited if, because every so often I will just want to, stomp the AI. I'll be tired and I'll be like, I want to play Runeterra, but I don't really want to have to think too much. I just want to come up with something cool, something unique, something that I know I can just blitz the AI with and win. And I would like that ability sometimes too as well. So I do think that this is something that we might need to look at. And I know that a lot of people have complained about this, but to me there is a much bigger issue afoot with the Path of Champions, and it's much more fundamental, I think, as well. If we return to the menu, and it's about the characters, and it's about these abilities, and this to me is the bigger problem. So some of the things that you get are more rerolls. So as you play more, you will be able to reroll those abilities, and that seems, like eventually you will get there, right? But to me, there is a much bigger problem, and I think that this was best illustrated by a comment I saw about Pyke. Because if you look at Pyke, one of Pyke's abilities here at level 8 is game start, grant lurkers in your deck +1/+1/1, and then grant all non-lurker allies lurk, and they become lurkers. So essentially, as far as I could tell, if I had to guess, I haven't played with Pyke in this mode just yet, but if I had to guess, but once you get to level 8, the power spike is going to be massive, I would think, because having played Pyke and Saltwater Scourge and whatnot, and on Lab of Legends, not hitting lurk feels bad. But when, you do you used to be able to get that ability that granted all the 3 or less cost things lurk. When you got that ability with Pike or Rek'Sai, it felt a lot more doable. It felt like, you could build towards something. It felt like it was very, you had a strong deck all of a sudden. So what I would guess is that with Pike, these first 7 levels are going to be very difficult. And then you're going to hit level 8 and then everything's going to be pretty smooth sailing for at least a while. And that to me seems wrong. It seems very backwards. And here's my point about that. Is that it feels like for these first 8 levels, you're just going to have to grind to eventually get this. A grind that won't really be that fun. That will be probably just like a monotonous challenge for you to eventually get to the point where it won't be a challenge anymore. Because, Pike in general is probably one of the harder ones without this kind of ability to do it with. So it's probably just going to be a bit of a grind for quite some time. And then you're probably going to get this ability, and then it's going to be quite easy for quite some time. And that is backwards, in my mind. And Lamp of Legends did it right. You started on normal difficulty, and you could win with most champions. If you got even half-decent abilities. You didn't need the best abilities in the game. You just needed, decent ones, and you could beat normal. And, you would then go up from there, and then you'd start needing more and more. And by the time you got to Legendary, obviously, you'd need, a good ability, and you'd need, things to go right to be able to win against Legendary. Well, that's the right way of doing it, right? You start off easier and you get harder. Whereas it seems like, for quite a few of these things and the way that this reputation thing works, it's almost a bit of the opposite where, you're gonna get up the reputation and sure, the bosses might get harder, but powers like this, or, at the very end, everyone has, an extra mana gem, and you're gonna unlock relics as well. It just feels like, and I haven't got to this point. I'm sure most people probably haven't because it's only been out a couple days. But it seems like it's gonna probably just get slightly easier as you go along, and it's gonna be like kind of a grind almost to get it to the right level of where you're happy with it. And that doesn't feel like a great way of going about this kind of idea. And so that seems a bit off. Now, this is still just the beta phase, right? This is that they're still just testing stuff out. This isn't the final iteration. I'm sure things will change again. It almost would put good money on the fact that they're just going to give you auto rerolls on the first ability. That seems like something that will probably just happen because people just seem to want it. And this to me though is the bigger issue because how do you change this? This seems like something that, they've come up with and want it to be fundamental. I mean, here's another one that gives more lurk stuff. It seems like they want this to be kind of a fundamental core piece of the gameplay, but to me, it creates a backwards loop where you're making the game easier as you go along rather than harder. Almost every game that has ever existed gets harder as you go along, whereas this seems like it's just going to make it easier. And I get the idea of getting extra rewards and going for those extra rewards, and I get that, the AI might become more difficult as time goes on, but still, I just believe that by the time you get to level 22, whatever that would be, however many runs you have to complete to get to this point, that at that point, you've got an extra mana gem. I don't see, how this is gonna go wrong. I don't see how, if you also get, a decent chance of abilities and you're getting rerolls now as well, you start getting extra rerolls from this and you get all of these and you've got relic slots as well. I just don't believe that it's going to be harder than it is when you first start. When you're doing that final run and you're on level 6 or whatever, that by the time you're on 22, it's definitely going to just be easy. And then how do you make it not easy? I'm just a bit concerned about the whole way this is going to work out, because to me it feels like it's just backwards. And that's just my opinion, and I'm very interested to see what others have to think. But having just sort of thought about it a bit, and now that I understand, what's going on with the whole thing, it seems like a bit of a fundamental flaw, and I'm not sure if they'd be willing to sort of change it, because I'm sure that they put a lot of effort into, thinking about a progression system and how it's going to work. And so to just kind of say like, oh yeah, we got that wrong, I don't know, that seems like something they probably won't do. And so I'm just a bit worried about how this is going to work, and yeah. But that's just me. I'd love to know what you think, because probably most of you have played more Path of Champions than me. I played it for a couple hours yesterday on my stream. And, you know, I've played a bit off stream as well. But, you know, I'm sure some of you at least have played more than me, and I'd love to know what you think as well. You know, maybe some of you have got to a really high level with a champion, because I haven't yet. I've, you know, kind of played with a bunch of different champions. So maybe if one of you has got to a really high level, does it get really easy all of a sudden? I'd love to know. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a really nice day. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you next time with more Legend of Runeterra content.